Okay. Hi, welcome back to the Jackie Mo Show. I am here with one of my beautiful friends, Nancy North. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Jackie. Thank you for having me on your show. I love you.
I love you too. You're one of my favorite people on this planet. It's fun to be able to interview you.
Well, thanks. This is fun.
Because I've kind of wanted to know, I've wanted to, whoa, sorry, whoops. I've wanted to interview you for a long time. Like I've wanted to know more about you for a long time. And
Well,
because you've led a really interesting life and you're still enjoying a very interesting life. And I just love you. And yeah, I think that a lot of that your story is so inspiring that I think people can learn to enjoy life more. You live a very fulfilled life, and yeah, I want to share that with the world.
well, thank you. Yeah, I do possess a lot of social capital. I'll put it to you that way. My financial capital could be better. It's okay, but I have a lot of social capital, and I always have that. I love to be out and about, celebrating, having fun, dancing, horsing around. I just get a kick out of it. It just lights me up. I love it. So uh, I
Yeah, same with me. That's the same
yeah
thing. Yeah.
yeah. So I was raised in Connecticut, and then I was in New York in the 1970s,
Wait,
and
what part of Connecticut were you in?
Fairfield, Connecticut. That's southern Connecticut. So Fairfield is very close to New York. A lot of the parents, of friends I had in high school, their parents the fathers commuted to New York for work, and they could get to the Grand Central in like 80 minutes each way. So it was one of those corridors that you had this suburban community in Connecticut. And Connecticut is very well groomed. And then you had this sort of uh, influence of New York close at hand, which was great because my parents would take me when I was a teenager on a train and we'd go into New York and we'd have lunch and then we'd see a Broadway show and it was great. I loved it. It was fun. I was 16
Wow.
when we did that, 16, 17. But then, of course, I had to leave. Connecticut was just too boring for me. So I went to New York and I studied fashion and design at a school called Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York, which was totally different from Connecticut. Connecticut was very preppy, very, waspy. Um, and New York was just totally different, which I didn't like in the beginning, but then I learned to embrace it and I loved it a lot. I loved the diversity after a while. So one of my classmates at Pratt was Robert Mapplethorpe and his girlfriend Patty Smith, and we were like an unholy trio running around
No
with each other. Yeah,
way.
Robert studied interior design, and Patty just hung out with him and her. They had a place on Brooklyn on DeKalb Avenue, one of those places. And I've met my husband there, and we all sort of just had the greatest time. We were really in love with New York, and we would go on the subway to Manhattan all the time. We
No
were yeah,
way.
fun.
How
So
was how was Patty Smith?
well, I didn't really know her that well then, and nor Robert, but I know they were there. And then actually, when I moved to New York City, to Manhattan, then I got to know them a little better because Robert left Patty for this other guy, and I was a very close friend with him. He was an artist, David Crowley. And we went into Manhattan and we were determined to be involved in the artistic community along with the fashion community. And by that, I mean, we really knew we were exposed to really phenomenal artists. And our entree was through our friend David, who had a girlfriend before he fell in love with Robert. And her name was Susan Bottomley, and she was a Andy Warhol superstar, also known as
Wow.
International Velvet. So we got invited through them to the factory, to the Warhol factory.
Wow, so
And
you
it
went to the
was,
factory.
yeah, so we got to know the Warhol folks, and I was just adjusting to this kind of new kind of culture. You know, it was different from what I'd been used to because I was kind of shy actually. And there was a restaurant nearby called Max's Kansas City, where all these artists had their studios. Like Andy had one on Union Square. So Max's Kansas City was on Park Avenue South and 17th Street, so they could really walk there right after business and have dinner or lunch. I mean, and a drink or whatever. So I would, meet Andy, and I knew Bryce Martin, and Larry Rivers. I mean, really, really established fine artists, and I was in heaven. I loved it because you got to sit down in the back room and meet and mingle with all these people. And we met Jackie Curtis, who was a playwright. You know, she was a drag queen. We loved her. And there was Candy Darling, who was a fabulous, fabulous drag queen. She really was very beautiful. And all the artists and ourselves, we were in heaven, and people that were our peers, makeup artists, that sort of thing. I just really gravitated to it. I was, oh, this is my tribe. I love it. I love it. And we did that almost every night from where we lived. I lived on the Upper West Side.
Oh, wow. Where on the Upper West Side?
76 and West and Central Park West.
Wow.
And I rented an apartment in the 1970s that had a copper ceiling. You know what that is? It's
No
beautiful.
way.
Yeah, it was gorgeous, like a baronial apartment.
Wow.
Beautiful, with a beautiful bay window, and I rented it for $150 a month.
No.
Well, you know what? New York was in decline yet. My parents thought I was insane to move there, but when you're young, you don't care. And I could walk in Central Park all the time and go to the East Side all over. It was great because I live right next to the park. So then we got to know some of the designers and fashion designers, and serendipitously, because I was young and tall and thin, after I graduated with a degree, a Bachelor of Fine Arts, I found myself modeling on runways for these designers like Bill Blass and Oscar de la Renta,
Wow.
fabulous African American designer named Stephen Burrows, Halston, and then I became very friendly with a very, very talented fashion illustrator named Antonio Lopez, who was probably the greatest fashion illustrator ever. His draftsmanship was remarkable. And he and his husband Juan, they were very interested in cultivating myself and some other women that were models, and encouraging us to go to Paris, and we did. And they introduced us to Karl Lagerfeld because Karl was very drawn to them because they were very creative and inspiring for his collections. So I was living, part time in New York, and then also in Paris sometimes Milan, London. It was fun.
Wow.
And then I got married, and my late husband became the creative director at Halston Enterprises, and we got very close to Halston. He rented the Andy Warhol house in the summer, so we were out there frequently. We'd take off from Teterboro Airport in New Jersey, and then land at the little sleepy airport in Montauk, Long Island, and then go to the Warhol compound, which was wonderful. And next door to us to that was Dick Cavett, that's next door to us. Do you know who he was?
It sounds familiar.
He was a big talk show host in
Okay.
the 70s. And then next to him was a famous fashion photographer named Peter Beard. So we did a lot of summers there. And then, of course, we got our own summer house eventually in Wainscott, New York, which is the Hamptons. And we went then, and then, of course, there was this whole period for 3 years of Studio 54. So we were there all the time.
Holy, you lived it.
Yeah, I was there. I got to know Steve Rubell and Ian Schrager. They were the owners because they were very connected to Halston. They were very Halston would go to the Studio 54, so the Red Seas would park for us when we walked into Studio 54. It was fun. And trying to recall, like, it was a really remarkable time. They were there for 3 years, and it was the discotheque that everybody in the world wanted to get into. You know, and it was sort of a see and be seen place. And then when that closed, Studio 54, all these sort of miniature offspring discos came about, where the punk came into fashion. Punk. It wasn't quite punk yet in Studio 54. And there was a club called the Mud Club, which was, I can't even remember, it was way downtown and smaller than Studio 54. But they would feature performers, and I was asked to do a one-woman comedy show. It's my first and my last, where I played three women talking simultaneously to each other at Studio 54. One was an African-American woman named Amina, who was tall. She was gorgeous. She was from the Harlem, and she went with me once to Paris to do a show for Karl Lagerfeld, a couple of shows, and we shared a hotel room together. And I'd say, Amina, here's some of my makeup if you want to help do it, help yourself and try it on. And she'd say, okay, but don't you touch nothing of mine. She was like that. And I said, well, what do you think of Paris, Amina? She said, it's okay, but she'd be painting this building over here green and that one purple. I mean, Nancy, this place is my style. I like sexy dresses and I like to be in Harlem with hot men, So that was her kind of character. And then the other character was a woman named Barry Berenson, who was a wonderful friend. And she was European born. And I don't like to say this, but she was in Flight 11 and 9/11. She passed away.
No.
Yeah, and she was a great gal, but she was one of the other characters I did. And then I did this woman named Larissa, who made fabulous coats for Mick Jagger, Mick and all those people. So I was talking, the three of us were talking, so I would have one character say something, and then I'd answer back as Larissa or Amina or Barry. And Andy came and all those people, and they thought it was really great. And I did the show again a couple of times. Oh, I had a ball doing that. Just so I thought I'd put that into you, because I did do a little stand-up comedy in my lifetime.
Did you love it?
I actually did. I really did love it. I really liked it a lot. And Larissa came back after the show and she says, you were fantastic. I could kill you, what you said about me.
I love that.
And Andy came back and said, Nancy, really good. You should be working, because he would say those smart, dumb things, Andy Warhol, like, gee, wow, that's really cool. Wow, And meanwhile, he's one of the top, pop artists of the day. And we did many things in tandem with those people. We did an iconic fashion show in 1970. When was it? 73, in November, at Versailles, France. And it was five.
Wow.
It was 5 European designers and 5 Americans. And I was a model for the Americans.
I think I saw that in one of his films. One of a documentary, or
you probably did, yeah.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So you were that's so cool.
You had me. It was a pool of models. We got paid very little, but we didn't care. We were so excited. We were flown over, and it was a very interesting event, because the French people were Givenchy and Yves Saint Laurent and Cardin and Dior and Ungaro. They were the designers, and they had these phenomenal floats made. I mean, amazing floats. Like Cardin had a rocket ship, and he had a guy in the rocket ship. We didn't have this. We were Americans. We just came with the models. And we had Liza Minnelli. She started the show.
No way.
Well, she was a client of
Halston. Oh, right. That was in the movie. Yeah.
She was a client. So she came, and we did some rehearsal in New York before we went over. And I think that the whole outcome of the show was the fact that we didn't intend to do this, but that the Americans won the day in Versailles, and even the French during mid intermission would say they threw up their programs and say, "Oh, the Americans say formidable," you know, because we had uh, fabulous music and we had some great models, and we had African American models that were they just kind of getting their footing, and they could really move their hips, and they were phenomenal. I mean, I was good too, but I have to say they really were exceptional. And what happened is what changed fashion is that the idea of custom clothes was going to dwindle forever because we were doing ready to wear clothes. And after the show, some of these prominent clients of the French, Jacqueline de Rive, Grace Kelly was there.
Wow.
They went backstage to order from Halston and Oscar de la Renta because they loved the clothes and they were going to get them fast. They didn't need all these fittings.
Right.
So it sort of changed uh, high fashion. They're still custom, but it's not as much as it used to be. Right. And it was quite a show, and there were adjunct parties to go along with it. Halston and David Mahoney, who was the CEO of Norton Simon, who bought the Halston name, rented out the whole evening a very famous restaurant there called can't even remember. This is terrible. It's famous.
Oh, you have a great memory.
Maxime's. I'm losing it. I'm getting dementia. You have to forgive me. So Maxime's, and so it was quite extraordinary because we were sitting and rubbing elbows with Josephine Baker.
Oh, wow.
The late Josephine Baker, the Duchess of Windsor was there, Jackie Kennedy, not Jackie Kennedy, Grace Kelly. It was pretty heady, pretty great. So we did that. And then we came back to the States, and that was that show. But I had done a lot of international traveling after that, doing shows for Karl Lagerfeld in Paris. Also, we went to Amsterdam. We'd go to Berlin. We'd go to all these places. He had his fingers in many design firms, and this is before Chanel. He worked for Chloe and a line in Germany called Timwear, and then we did some fashion in Amsterdam, and we traveled a lot in Europe for him. And I did shows for Halston, Bill Blass, all those people. And then Halston, as people may know, because of the Netflix series, was asked to leave his company because he was trying to burn the candle at two ends, go to Studio 54 and work, which was not really doable. Demands at work because he would float in at 1 in the afternoon and really the day was over in another 2 hours. So he was invited to stay home. And then I found myself doing a lot of shows for Elsa Peretti. Elsa was one of Halston's models, and she was Italian. And she came from a very privileged Italian family, and she went to New York, and she studied architecture in Europe and in Switzerland. But she became a model too. She wanted to have that kind of a life for a while. And she started doing prototypes of jewelry that were really, really different and fabulous. They're very, very sensuous. You really want to touch them. And her jewelry line is quite well known. And she was known for this bone cup that she did, this famous bone cup, and she used ivory at a time when you could use it. And then I found myself traveling with her around the world in Asia because she was doing shows for Tiffany. Tiffany decided to take her under its wing, and she did a fabulous business for them. She did about in the 1970s, 80s, I would say it hit in the 80s. She did maybe 18% of their annual business, which was like a $5 billion business.
Jeez.
Because Tiffany's has 1,000 doors in the world, 1,000. And we would go to Singapore and Australia, and they'd have these shows at like raffles where we stayed in Singapore and tables for clients. and that's where she would have her jewelry displayed on the clothes that I would provide. So I did that for a while. And unfortunately, Elsa passed away 2 years ago. Halston passed away in 1990. My late husband passed away in 2010. And I'm alive. I'm still here. I got out of it. And I'm finding myself in Mexico. And I'm really sad in the way that Elsa died because she would have loved it here. I mean, I think she's been here before, but this is her kind of country. And it's got a lot of European vibe to it, very bohemian. I love it. It's beautiful. And do you have any more questions? Because I'm running
What a
out of
fun,
steam.
yeah. What was your favorite place to visit? Was there a spot that you loved the most?
Oh well, I loved Paris. It's
Yeah.
gorgeous, and and I have to say, Karl Lagerfeld treated us like we were queens. I mean, he'd take an entourage of us out to La Coupole for dinner, and then we'd go to an Iranian restaurant the next night. He was very generous.
Beautiful.
I'd leave Europe, and I'd leave not only with paid from him, but with a bundle of clothes that would make a billionaire's wife jealous. I mean, my wardrobe at one time was like phenomenal. It's all gone with the wind now. You know,
Don't have
I
it anymore?
no, I mean, I was like this then. Now I'm
Um,
like this, and we'd have shoes made by Manolo Blahnik or Christian
wow.
Louboutin. I go, oh my dear, you must have these shoes because no one else can wear them. So you take them, and this dress, Nancy, I need Nancy, put this on, yes, it's fabulous. Go put it in with your suitcase. Okay, my dear, I'll see you, like that. So I was like, wow, I like this life. It's I could get used to just like the red carpet life. And I loved Montauk. I loved the Hamptons, and I loved Paris. I
Beautiful.
didn't love Milan, but it was a good place to work. I got some work there. I did some print there, uh, catalog print, magazines. There were a lot of magazines then, and a girl from America could really get her portfolio together because there were not enough models to fill all these assignments. And then come back to the States. I was with Wilhelmina Models,
Oh, wow. Wow.
and she really taught me how to make up. She was phenomenal. She died young, very young, um, and that's where I am there. Do you have any other questions for me?
Wow. So
It's
when you
me
went
doing
to
all the talking.
I
Oh, they
love
call
it.
me all that. That's right. I'm a Halstonette. Now we're Halstonette. So there were like 5 Halstonettes. I was one. Pat Cleveland, very famous, fabulous African American model. Alva Chin, Karen Bjornson, Nancy North, Chris Royer. We were Halstonettes. Some of them, I think a few of them are passed away, but at the time we were labeled that. Like we Halston would dress us, and we'd go to the Met Ball and everything,
No
and
way.
we were quoted as Halston as like puppets. We were like it was a put down. But now Isaac Mizrahi, 10 years ago or 50 years ago, when he was representing a line with the label Halston, said you too can be a Halston. And so it's become like a thing to be. So I'm one of those things.
That's really cool. And you have a lot of drawings. What are the sketches?
Yes, I have 300 hand-drawn sketches that landed into my hands when after Halston died. He felt that Phil and I were doing the business of our own. It would be a good resource for us. I've sold through the help of someone 70 of them to Neiman Marcus. I have 300 left. I'm looking to sell them, find a home for them where they could be very valued, whether it's a museum anywhere in the world or a human. I've sold some to personal people for their homes and also to institutions like Neiman Marcus.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's
But I
treasure.
have 300 left, and I want to sell them. I'd like to get them to the good homes.
Yeah, get them really good homes. Do you have one that you love the best that you want to keep for yourself?
Yeah, I have a couple, but they're no. There's not one that I love more than the other. It's no.
They all must be magical.
Yeah, they're pretty special. And of course, you know, we every Christmas we would get Andy would come over to Halston's house and give us gifts that like studio VIP tickets that were, you know, works of art signed, and every time we went out to lunch with Andy, he'd take cloth napkins and do a sketch on them and then sign his name. And I had about 8 of those.
You
And
do?
yeah,
Wow. Do you have them framed?
no, but I also had a client that wanted to go to Andy's factory, and I brought he and his wife there. They were an Indian couple, and they bought a whole collection of his shoes. He did his shoe collection. He called it the Diamond Dust collection. And he said, "Come here, I have something for you." So he gave me, you know, a big lithograph that he did. So those were good Christmases, you know. And
Wow. You
I
can
get
start your own
cashmere.
museum.
Yeah, I've sold a lot of them already because I could use the money. And Halston would give these wonderful gifts of, you know, cashmere dresses. And it was terribly selfish of me because my parents would call and say, "Are you coming home for Christmas, dear?" Go, "No, Mama, no, it's not too good to be here. I can't pass up this opportunity." And all the stories I have to tell you, Jackie, in 1977, Martin Scorsese did a movie called New York, New York, and Liza Minnelli was the star. And my husband and I and this woman, Dee Dee Ryan, who was sort of a socialite, we went back to Halston's house for dinner. And he said, "A few people are coming over for dinner tonight, so just grab yourself a potato and make yourself comfortable." You know, we had drinks and everything. And all of a sudden, in walks Liza, Robert De Niro, Christopher Walken, Harvey Keitel, and Martin Scorsese. So these were the few people that were there. So that was a pretty electric evening. And we have evenings like that very frequently.
Wow.
Elizabeth Taylor was another one that we helped dress. She was the godmother of Liza, and that's how that happened. And I also got to know, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but now there's a Netflix series out that Ryan Murphy did in addition to the Halston limited series called The Swans versus Truman
Oh,
and
yeah, I
Capote.
did just watch that. So
Yeah. So
good.
Babe Paley, I would present a lot of collections to her.
Wow.
A lot of the Swans, Doris Duke, um, Catherine Graham, who was the founder and the publisher of the Washington Post newspaper, probably the most important newspaper in America. And that was pretty interesting meeting those people. And I knew Truman Capote. He would come over and give recitations from his latest books with a lot of emotion. It was pretty amazing, pretty impressive. So it was a pretty glamorous life. And my life is different now, everyone, but if whoever is watching, whether it's one or 3 of you, but it's very good and I love it. I live in San Miguel de Allende and it's beautiful here. And maybe Jackie will visit me one day. It's extraordinarily beautiful. Mexican people are sweet, charming, and um, I love it.
Yeah. What part are you in?
I'm in the very middle of the country in a state called Guanajuato,
Oh,
which is
wow.
right next to Guadalajara, the state of Jalisco, which is where Guadalajara is. So it's right in the middle. I'm on top of the mountain. I'm up 700 feet. So it's extremely hot here, but dry. So it's sort of like Santa Fe.
Right.
And we're in our summer now, so it's not unusual. Around 3 to 6, the temperatures spike to 99, but
Wow.
dry, but dry.
Right. Wow. Beautiful. And how long have you been there?
5 years.
And you moved there from New York City?
I did. Well,
Wow.
I actually moved from New York first to Florida for 3 years because I didn't want the winters, and Florida was not a place for me.
You're too glamorous. What part of Florida were you in?
West Palm Beach. It
Okay.
wasn't so much that. It was just that driving really got me stressed out because the people drive like maniacs there, and it got me stressed. And also, it was more money than I anticipated, And the summers were very brutal. I mean, I didn't want the winters anymore in New York, but the summers in Florida were worse than here because it's all humid
Right. So
and hot and humid.
so that what made you? How did you hear about where you live in Mexico?
Well, this woman lives here named Carola Polikoff, who also worked at Halston, and I found her on Facebook, and I said, "Oh, it's so good to reconnect with you." And she said, "I'm here in San Miguel de Allende. This is where I live." And I said, "I visited there with my last beau, who died 5 years ago, and we loved it." And she said, "Well, you should come down because I have a place for you to stay if you're interested for a while, and if you want to stay longer, then you can look around." And I did exactly what she said, and I was very happy about it. Uh, the people are very, this is a big expat community that moves here, that are very highly educated people from the States. And there's a lot of Mexicans, obviously, and they're very sweet, and some of them are very sophisticated. And um, I stayed with Lola Cholet, and she has a beautiful house. I stayed there for a while, and she was the widow of the ambassador from France to countries like Singapore and Tenerife, and they lived there
Wow.
for many years. He was a good deal older than her. He passed away. She came back here because she was born in Mexico to French parents. And she was so used to entertaining all the time that she was entertaining every night. I was meeting all these wonderful, interesting people. I was having a ball, you know. And then I got my own place.
That's so funny. So, but you go out all the time.
I do. I stay home, but I do go out social. I like it. I like San Miguel because it reminds me of New York. It's a walking city. It's small. It's 250,000 people. It's not New York, but I can walk from my casita to a restaurant and walk home, and that's cool.
That's super cool.
I don't need to drive. I didn't want a car anymore. And you can have taxis here and Ubers. They're very reasonable. And I have a lot of friends here. It's really cool. I love it.
It's beautiful. And so, okay, so I want to go back to Studio 54. What was the craziest thing you ever saw there?
Mm. Well, that's a good question. Probably didn't see anything that crazy. I saw.
No, everybody, it was
I
just
mean, I would walk in, and there would be a friend of mine, Bobby, or somebody would sit there and write it. You say, "Hey, here, you want some Coke?" I mean, it was that open to
so
do
you did a
something.
lot of coke at Studio 54.
Well, I didn't do a lot of it, but there was a lot of it there. That way. But the craziest thing I ever saw there, well, it was just a crazy environment because you don't really know anyone there. You know who they are because you see them every night, and they come up to you and air kiss you like you were their best friends, and that's pretty crazy to me.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, "Oh, hello, darling. It's so good to see you. I missed you so much."
Right. That's so funny. That's great. Uh, so it's interesting. I haven't had the type of glamour that you've had, but I've had I've been on some red carpets at different film festivals. And it's interesting because I know you and we both love glamour, but we both have also found a love even bigger than glamour,
Yes. Yeah.
which
Spirituality. That was missing in New York, by the way. That didn't exist where I was for a minute. Yes, my life is much more spiritual and very full and wonderful, and very, very gratifying, different than Studio 54. I loved my life when I was young, all that. And I like my life now, which is different, and it's this, which is more for me. And as you know, my wardrobe has dwindled to a closet of, clothes. I don't need that.
Right, right. Is your closet really that big?
Well, actually, I have two closets. I have one
Okay,
this
good,
way
good.
and then one next to it. So I still love clothes, and but it's different. Yeah, it's okay. It's more casual, and I still want to travel. I still travel. Last year I was in Greece and Turkey, and I might be going to Ireland. And
Really?
I want to go to Ireland.
What have you been to Ireland before?
No, have you?
I have. I just went to Galway.
That's where I want to go.
Really? I
I
had a
hear it's
blast.
I hear it's quite beautiful there.
It's so beautiful. I was awful. I went to the Cliffs of Moher
Oh, I want to do that.
and I just kept scream singing, "The cliffs are alive." Like people are trying to have like a spiritual moment, and I'm just like scream singing, "The cliffs are
Yeah.
alive."
The cliffs are alive, Jeannie. I
They
know.
were
I want to go
beautiful.
to Galway. Well, a friend of mine went to Ireland and she said, "You've got to go. You've got to go," because she went to this tavern. Okay. So she said, this burly man comes in and goes, "Hello, Bridget. How are you tonight?" And then there's a woman sitting over in a corner, dressed sort of in the, not like 16th century bridal, sort of an apron on and a long brown skirt. And she's got children around her. And she goes, "Hi, Lovey. Hi, Lovey. Come over here, Lovey. I want to experience that."
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That wouldn't be Studio 54. They wouldn't say, "Come over here, Lovey." They go, "Oh, darling," but
Right, right.
yeah, yeah. So I'm not, I'm going with flow, Jackie, as much as
Yeah.
I can.
Oh, we have to go with the flow. What about so Andy Warhol, was he spiritual at all?
Wouldn't call him that. However, he was a very bright man. He always said these smart, dumb things like, "Gee, hi, how are you? Did you have sex with your husband tonight? What happened?" Andy, I can't connect to this. Oh, yeah, stuff like
That's
that.
fun.
Yeah, but he was pretty smart, shrewd. He told me the story of his success, and I found it a fascinating story.
Tell me.
Well, he was an illustrator he went to Carnegie Tech, so he's great at drawing, very excellent draftsmanship. And he was an illustrator for my Miller. It was a shoe company, and he did very well. It was very lucrative. But he was very fascinated with fine art and the art dealer go-to person then was a man named Leo Castelli. Today it's Gagorsian. What's his name? Good, good. He's it's that like the Kardashians. What nationality? I keep forgetting.
Oh, um,
They're Larry Gagosian. I don't know how to pronounce it, but he's
right.
the go-to guy now. If you're here, anybody hears this, please forgive me for not doing it right. Anyway, so Andy would go there to the Leo Castelli's gallery, and he started to purchase Jim Dines, and Andy did. So of course he's going to get the ear of the owner because he's a client.
Right.
And then he decided he wanted to do something artistic, and he asked Castelli if he'd look at his work. He said sure. So he went in and showed him all of this art. And he said, "Oh, Andy, it's great, but I just signed on an artist named Roy Lichtenstein who did something similar." So Andy went home sort of disgruntled, and his mother lived with him. Andy's mother lived with him. She had all these Campbell soup cans, in the cupboard. And he said, "Mom, go out and buy every Campbell soup can you can find in the supermarket." And then he did variations of them by enlarging them and doing them with these silk screens to make them very professional. Showed him Leo Castelli, and that was the start of the whole thing.
Wow.
So he was very clever and very talented.
Wow.
He managed his business quite well, I feel.
Yeah. So did
I
you,
was lucky to know somebody like that. I mean, I was in awe of him.
I bet.
His staff. He had quite a staff of people that worked for him in the factory. That was just fascinating. People were fascinated with it because it was so different.
Right. So it seems to me like what I've seen from him that he just didn't have any doubt in himself.
I think he was pretty confident. You're right, but he was clever to surround himself with very smart people. It's a team. You know, we all need a team. It's hard to do anything alone, and he had good people working with him.
Right. So cool. Did you ever meet Basquiat?
No, unfortunately, no. That was no.
So sad, he's so young.
He was
Uh,
really talented. Yeah,
and Candy Darling, she was amazing.
she was. Yep, she was. She was great. She was quite beautiful. I think she died kind of young too.
Yeah, I believe I saw a documentary on her. She was so brave for that time to be
Yeah,
out and be herself. Really beautiful. That's what was so cool about Andy Warhol. People were able to be themselves.
yeah.
Yeah. So did you ever meet Valerie Solanas? Do you know?
No, no.
I read her Scum Manifesto.
Did you?
Yeah, that was awful.
But I noticed that some of his team, Vincent Fremont was the operating director, Bob Colacello, who's written many books since. Yes, Bridget Berlin, who was there a lot with Andy, but she passed away. And I knew quite a few of the superstar, you know, Andy Warhol superstars.
Yeah. So, uh, but so I want to talk about the switch from to spirituality. Like, did something happen in your life where you,
Yes, it did. I was getting a divorce and I had a business that I was not paying attention to. I was able to raise quite a bit of money for it, but I was not a good business person. So it was very scary that my marriage was disintegrating along with my business. And I finally called my sister and reached out and ran it and met a therapist who asked me how I was coping with it, and I didn't know what she was talking about. She said, "Well, you know, do you drink?" And I said, "No, I only drink on the weekends, and I only take a gram of coke every 5 weeks." She said, I've got news for you. You're going to AA," which is the best thing I ever did for myself, and I'm grateful for it. And I know I'm outing myself, which I hope it isn't going to hurt people that do know me, because I don't want to out anybody. In this, we may have to edit this. I don't know, Jackie.
I, I've been, I've made the decision to be out because I think it
Okay.
does help people.
As long, but some people want that I might be close to might want to be anonymous, and then you know, I don't.
Oh, so you think you want to edit it out?
I'm considering it, but I just as soon keep it if it helps people. But it put me on another path, and I really hated AA in the beginning, and I hated everything. But now I love it. It's the best thing I ever did. I love the people. They're connected. They're real. They're helpful. They're amazing.
It's
The
the
saints, the sanest people I know are in that program.
right.
My
I same thing. I mean, I was like, there is no way I'm going to be in AA.
Oh no, 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 no way, no.
No way.
And it's not for people who need it, it's for people who want it.
Yeah.
They were lucky.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that. Yeah, but it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I love it so much.
Me too.
It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's just uh there's nothing like it in the world. The whole world should run like it.
Well, you know, when I come out of a meeting, I feel like I don't need anything.
Same.
I just say, you know, I mean, I do have needs. We do have needs as human, but you know, I had all that glamorous life I had, I loved, but the material life, I still like some of it, but it's not as important as it used to be.
Right. As having, that's how I always say in my lead when I do a lead share that if somebody could give me $1 billion and be like, you can never go to AA again, I really would
I'd
say,
say no.
I really would
I would
say
say no.
no.
I'd say no
I'd
because
say no too.
I wouldn't be happy. And then
I wouldn't either.
no,
It's
no.
wild. And I remember when I first got sober, I would hear your best day drinking isn't as good as your worst day sober. And I was like, that's ridiculous.
Oh, I know. Well, drinking was my God. I mean, I loved it. I
Right.
did a lot of it. Studio 54. There were drugs. I've heard. I've been sober a long time, 29 years, but I've heard that it's the kids today that are doing it. They're really struck with more challenges because a lot of the drugs are laced with fentanyl. And
Right.
I'm hearing young people tell me that they've lost friends. I mean, like a 22-year-old. I
Yeah.
lost friends with AIDS. I was like 40 or 45. That's young enough. But, when you hear about a child, really 22-year-olds, they've lost 6 friends, it's really tragic. And
It's
it's
unbelievable.
unbelievable. So I would be, I don't know, you're so vigilant taking anything because it could be laced with fentanyl and
Yeah.
you don't need much of it.
Right. Yeah. A friend of mine, her, she has a child in school, and his classmates, uh, their parents had a night off, and they're in a really wealthy school, and the parents were like date night, and they did coke, and they both died. So they left
No,
4 kids.
I know it's so tragic. So, going from the world of drugs and glamour, and also it was a time in my time where we're all being recorded now. So, I mean, if I step out of here, there's a video of all of us being
Right.
recorded. So you could get away with this stuff more then because there was no internet.
Right, for sure.
So we took full advantage of that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, you drank and partied at the ultimate pinnacle. I guess the only other pinnacle would be like the Gilded Age.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you did the pinnacle of, when it was the most glamorous. It's
Yeah.
never been as glamorous as when you got
Yeah,
to
it
drink and
was
party.
really glamorous. There's still that now, but I don't know if people. It's
Not
just
at all. There's not glamour.
no. I
And
know. Well, it's funny because I'm not with the young crowd, so I don't know that a lot of people work remotely. I mean, we had to work face to face. I mean, also that I went through things in New York. We had 9/11, and prior to 9/11, I could walk in with a book as a model to any building without any security and go up to any floor, open a door to some designer or artist studio where they had a business without uh, a an appointment. I could do that. You can't do that.
right,
Oh, that's totally changed. So there was
right.
that to go through. That was quite something. I lived in New York when that happened. I wasn't down there, but like I said, I lost Barry in the flight, and it was really that was the only time ever in New York where everybody came outside and said, "How is everybody?"
Beautiful.
It's just pretty horrible.
It's like uh it's like AA, how everybody just loves each other in there because you've all, what each other has seen. You have been in the grips of something that you couldn't control. And so it's the same thing with everybody dealing with 9/11. Yeah. So you were there during 9/11, but you were sober.
Not yet.
Oh,
No,
wow.
I got sober in 1995.
Oh,
Oh
okay.
yeah, I was. I was. You're right, I was. It's so long. It's true.
Yeah, it's probably a good thing to be. Like it was fun for me to be sober during the pandemic, the quarantine. I was just like, thank God, because that would not have been fun by myself just drinking all day. I wouldn't have been able to stop. And I
Right.
probably would have been like out finding places to
Yeah.
like,
No,
yeah,
I know. My shrink told me what to do. I said, "You got to be kidding me!
right.
I can't imagine a life without drinking, darling." But
I couldn't, I still can't believe it. People,
I can't believe it because I was like, "How do you want me to? I couldn't possibly live this." She said, "Yeah, I know." So I'm glad I did it. And I've lost a lot of people to AIDS, a lot of people to uh, this disease, and I do believe that a lot of people who died of AIDS, not all of them, there was alcohol involved or drugs.
right. Yeah. Yeah. We're really lucky.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Oh, so make a decision to be. I've been listening to, you had told me to listen to, or you were studying it, and I just started studying Think and Grow Rich.
Mm-hmm.
And they say in it to make a decision to be comfortable with any amount of wealth. And I thought that was so beautiful.
I think it is. I did a test once that said, with your net worth, how would it be 10 times? So that would be, like about $3 or $4 million. But then they said, what would it be like 100 times? And then that's like 30 million or something. And how about 1,000? So that's 300 million. But it's funny for me when it hit 300 million, I started to say, well, I'm going to have a staff, and somebody's going to have to be paid 100,000, which is great. Somebody else would have to be the gardener for 100,000. I'll have to have a lot of insurance, a lot of insurance.
Right.
I have to have uh, a lot of, security. I'll have to have. It almost got me to the point where I wouldn't want it
Yeah, I love that.
because, well, really, I wouldn't. I looked at all the expenses and the responsibilities that are involved, and maybe if I were younger, maybe, but I wouldn't want it. And then risks in the market that you would be taking, and then you have to buy a lot of property. Then those properties have to be maintained. Those, it was interesting that I took that exercise that somebody suggested.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, God, I want that, and I don't think I would want it.
Right. Because there's a freedom in not having to be minimalist.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, all that. I don't want that much responsibility. And I know if you find really good people who work for you, they can do that for you. But
So cool. And what else did I learn about it? That oh, I forgot what else. Anything that you learned from Napoleon Hill that you want to share?
well, I like the fact that he knew Andrew Carnegie, and Andrew Carnegie said to him, "Interview as many people as you can think of who are prosperous the way you would like to be or you think you'd like to be." And that is a big learning curve. That is a real way to find out the secret of all those people's successes. Because just like I pointed out to you about Andy, I mean, he worked very hard. He was good at what he did. But if I hadn't known that story, I might have thought it was a lot harder for him to get where he got. And actually, a lot of people that are very successful, they've worked hard, they deprived themselves of things that they wanted, and they to fulfill a dream. But many of them, it was not as hard as I thought it would be. It's funny,
Yeah.
very revealing. And I find that that happens a lot with what we do in the program. Like anything I resist, like, oh, I don't want to do this because it's going to be this. And then you do it and you go, how did I do that 10 years ago? It's so much fun.
Right, right.
Right? You
Yeah,
know, it's
absolutely.
like it's money like 300 million. I don't want that.
Right, right, right. Yeah, the thing that you resist is usually what you fear the most is usually, or what you uh
Resist.
yeah,
It's
what you
yeah,
immediately say no to. There's a difference, there's
what
a fine line between following your instincts and going with the flow and seeing if you are saying no to something too quickly.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And also that the thing you fear is the thing you should do.
Right. Like do your one woman show again.
Well, yeah. No, I do those three girls at Studio 54 now, but
Could
that
you
was
do
fun.
that?
I enjoyed it. I'm good at doing impressions
You're really
and the
good at
voice.
it.
Yeah, the voices. I can get the voices down. I grew up in a musical home. My mother was a singer,
Oh,
and
wow.
when my father, there was a lot of dysfunction in my family, but one thing that united us, we all loved music, and we would get up. My sisters and I, and my parents would dance and sing to the music. We liked jazz, we liked classical, you name it, we loved it. So that was really wonderful. And you start to hear everything. When you start to pick up music, it's not about listening and paying attention. It's about hearing the tone, the sound, the
Mhm.
way somebody says something, and you pick that up. And I think that's where I learned all that.
That's really cool. Listening, hearing it,
Hearing,
hearing,
listening's different.
listening and versus hearing. I love that.
Like when you talk to people and they have different regionalisms from, Brooklyn or Eastern Long Island. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Rhode Island, but I
Okay,
moved here from New York City.
okay, but you have that New England way of speaking as I do. We like to hit our hard R, and
Right,
I go nuts when I'm around somebody who said I farmed everything. I want to say it's not farmed, it's farmed.
right, right, right.
So you pick that up and you start to hear all these different things, tones and pronunciations. And that's really, I think, where I learned all that, listening to a lot of different singers and music. I loved it. I love music.
So you go dancing now.
I do.
And so how often do you go dancing?
Well, there's a place here that I do go dancing, and I go once a month, sometimes longer. I have a good time when I do it, but it's not a thing I need to do every week.
Right.
But I
But
like
fun. Dancing is so important, I think.
it. It's fun. Yeah, I like it. And
Beautiful.
we're here in San Miguel with a lot of, like 30 women and 3 men dancing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
so,
wow.
so it's a lot of women dancing amongst women. And we're just doing freestyle and all, and letting our hair down, having
That's
fun.
really fun. That's my favorite freestyle, just dancing on my own. Yeah. So where can people find you? You're on Facebook and
Yeah, I'm on Instagram too, and I don't remember what it's Nancy underscore North. I don't know what my Instagram account is. Can I get back to you on that? I'll have to do it.
sure, I'll post it on the
I'll get back to you on it because
okay.
this is fun for me, Jackie. I really enjoyed it.
I had fun too. It's so fun getting to know you.
I know. So who would know? So I did have a really. I'm grateful for the life I had, and the takeaway is today. I'm so grateful to have had that exposure to seeing really superb artists and designers and people who could design everything from a mobile home phenomenally to a mansion.
Right.
Creativity that was out there that I experienced was just like a feast. It was wonderful. Wonderful.
Mm,
It's very abundant and beautiful. So I'm grateful to have that. I can take it away and apply it to something I want to do here, do for myself as far as if I helped anybody with their wardrobe needs or personal styling, which I still do, because it gave me the eye to do that with these people, you know. I
that's
saw things differently, the way they presented things than when I was from.
beautiful. Well, thank you. I love you very much.
Thank you. I love you too. Are we done? I'm out of here.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay, hasta luego.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was great.
Thanks, Jackie. Bye.
Bye. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego. Trying to get